All right, we are back again for another edition of our behavior chats. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with our very first question here. And this question has to do with some task refusal. All right, so this is a 9-year-old boy who's able to follow some basic instructions, and they've learned to come over and work on some tasks. However, when the parent calls them over to try something new, the child starts crying and runs away. And so once the child calms back down, then the parent tries to prompt them through the task, but the child isn't concentrating and it ends up prolonging the session time. And so because at that time the child isn't concentrating and the session gets longer, now they've even started to refuse to do tasks that they've been able to do in the past. So the question is, what should this parent do? All right, so now the easy answer is going to be to follow through, which means that whatever task you have them do, you make them do it until they can do it independently. The more complicated thing is like, well, what happens when you first call them over for a new task? You know, like, okay, they start crying and then they run away. Do you stop them from running away? Where do they run away to? Do they run away to their room? Do they run away to someplace? Then do they start playing with other things, you know, or what is it that is happening in that span of time when they start crying and they're running away from you? You know, do you just let them, like, okay, wherever they go, you just leave them alone until they calm down and then you bring them back to the task? You know, all of those important details make a difference in terms of like how we would go about working through this behavior. So when we work with kids, the first thing we do is we make sure there is no running away, which means that they try to run away, we stop them immediately. We don't let them get very far and we don't make it a game, you know? So as soon as they try to get away, we stop them immediately. If they drop to the floor, they drop to the floor. But then as soon as we can, we get them sitting down at a chair. And so for us, the first thing is we cut off the escape. There's no escape. You know, like, oh, you try to run away, we're going to make sure there's no way you're going to succeed at running away. Because when it comes to running away, the further that they get, the longer it is that it takes before you get back to the original task, the more reward there is in running away. So that if you allow them to run off and they're successful at running off, they learn that that's an effective method by which they can escape the task. How are you helping the child? You know, are you giving them enough help, especially at the beginning of the task, you know, rather than like, oh, I let my child try it and then I see what they're doing wrong and then I come in to try to help. You know, usually that strategy is not necessarily a great strategy. What you really want to do is like, oh, from the very beginning of asking you to do something new, I'm going to help you fully with it so that you can be successful with it. I can reinforce you for it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on doing it with the idea that each successive practice with it, I'm going to reduce the amount of help I give while you maintain your level of success. The other part is on the reinforcement side, which is when he actually complies with the task, when he's no longer crying, when he's listening to you, making sure that there's enough reinforcement there to support him listening to you.